The first thing is that everyone needs to understand that implementing a quality management system actually adds value to your business. It's not a tick box exercise. Shouldn't be a paper tiger. It is really, really a value. The next one is that we're talking about a step-by-step implementation process. Is not that you are throwing everything into the company and ask the team, go on with it. It should be a structured approach. And the third thing we are talking today is about applying practical strategies. And I'm really, really happy that Lisa could make it. So I can tell you a lot, but I think it's always good to have someone in the team who can talk about the pain and who has experience actually. So let's go on. What is the value for the business? Because you always have the discussion with the team, oh, do we have to do this? So anyway, it is the same. It is the same for the team as it is for the management. One thing is you want to place a medical device on the market with a quality management system. You ensure that you not only have your processes in place, but you also meet regulatory requirements, which can add more requirements to your quality management system already. The other one is when you're talking to clients and you're telling them you have a quality management system in place, it's sure that you follow a structured approach. And even if you are not a medical device manufacturer, but a supplier into the system, your client will be really pleased to hear that you have a quality management system in place. And of course, the last one is it helps your organization to streamline processes. So, and you ensure that the team follows all the time the same processes. So again, it's value for the business. It's not a paper tiger. And if you have a good quality management system in place, it really helps the business. That's what we had before. Why are we implementing? We have a framework in which everyone can operate. We are talking about credibility. And the other thing is, if we have processes in place, we are faster placing a device on the market because every time we are following the same process. People who know me know I'm already talking about cooking. I compare cooking, regulatory compliance a bit with cooking, because when you go back and when you started, the first time you needed recipe, or I grew up in a time we had these big cookbooks. So we use this. But that was I could go back and say, okay, if I'm not sure, I have a look into this and I know what to do. And that's exactly what your quality management system does. It is required to place your device on different markets. I have given you an overview. When I say required, sometimes it is required to have a quality management system in place, but it is not required to have a certificate. That is the difference. We are talking about having a quality management system compliant with 13.5 in place, all the processes, everything, but it's not required necessarily to have a certificate. We have some countries where we place medical devices on the market. We need a quality management system compliant with 13.5, but we need a certificate which follows the medical device single audit program. What this means is you have 13.5, your quality management system is compliant with 13.5, and you have already inherited the regulatory requirements from the specific country. So Canada is one of those. When you place a device on the Canadian market, you follow 13.5. You have a look into the requirements, into the regulatory requirements, and then you get audited by a body who is accredited for MDSAP. But that is a different topic. I only want to give you an idea of what does it mean to have 13.5 in place. and how many markets you can actually reach with this. Talking about implementing or setting up a quality management system, we have 4 key principles. And as I say, I always comply regulatory compliance with cooking. Some people doesn't like it, but that's okay. So when you cook, one thing is you have to stay organized, you have to be attentive, you use high quality ingredients, you try to season properly, and you don't want to overheat, otherwise it's burned, right? So let's go back to regulatory. First thing we have is risk management, right? We're talking about a medical device. And when we set up our quality management system, risk management has a high priority. Documentation, sure. In quality and regulatory, what is not documented, it's not done. It's not existing, okay? I don't talk with an auditor or with a notified body or with an authority and say, but yes, we have done. Show me the evidence, and evidence is always documented. Another thing we have, it's traceability, and traceability means when we are talking about our quality management system, that we really can show we start our medical device development really from the idea, from feasibility through the whole medical device development process to the transfer until placing on a market. That's all documented, and it has to be all traceable. And for sure, regulatory compliance. That is. So that is a few or 4 key principles we are talking about. And now we're talking about how do we start. As I say, we have some people here who already have set up their quality management system, but some are quite new and some in the process. So we have 3 phases. One is the setup, then we have the implementation, and then we have the maintenance. Even it doesn't sound like this, but for me, setup is always the hardest one. Setup is where you start to, you start to structure your quality management system. So when I say you start, you have a broad idea what you want to do, but you're not really clear what you want. So, and that's why we are talking about an estimation about 2 to 3 months. If you're an experienced QA person, it obviously can be done in 4 weeks, but that is your architecture. That is your process architecture. That's why I would say take your time and engage the team and play wise, because what you have to do is you have to establish, not when I say establish, I don't say we start writing the procedures, but you have to establish the required procedure. You have to make clear, okay, that are the procedures we need. You have to start drafting documents. When I say drafting documents, it just draft the first document as a template so that you know how does my procedures look like. They should look all the same, right? The next one is then defining the rules. What people do I need on a team? Sometimes we are talking about a startup. I only have 3 people. Then there's not much choice, but I have to define the rules. We will talk about later about this. And then another thing is selecting tools. What tools do I use to write my quality management system, to develop my quality management system? That is all, well, that is a team decision. Let's put it this way. It should be a team decision because everyone has to work with it. To give you a broad idea, that is an overview what based on my experience, what I would recommend to go on. And as you can say, it's not actually out of someone's head. It is really based on a regulatory strategy. you need to understand what is your product. You need to understand which markets you want to go. You might have an idea then of the team size and so on. Based on your regulatory strategy, actually, you do the setup of your quality management system. And I would say that is the first thing for Lisa to jump in, because I was talking about tooling, and you have to make a decision for a tool. I mentioned some tools here, but it's really up to the team, up to the product. Anyway, Lisa, what is your experience with choosing a tool, and which impact has it? Can you tell a bit of your
Hey
experience?
everyone, thanks Anne. Yes, tools is a really tricky one, I think. It has quite a wide ranging impact, really. I guess the struggles that we've had, or I've had with different companies I've been with, it needs to link to as many systems as you can, because the difficulty we have with quality management systems is it often pulls in records from other parts of the business which have their own tools. So it becomes tricky if you're trying to work through a non-conforming product report and you're trying to capture, what items you have in stock at the moment, and that's captured in a different place, so that's constantly changing. Records for training, often that's in an HR system, and so you don't want to duplicate. So that's the tricky thing, is you want to have all the records linked, and you don't want to duplicate any of them, because that's obviously when issues happen with things out of date. And you mentioned and traceability, that is quite a wide-ranging process, I guess. It links to so many parts of the business, even right through to the sales. Once you're actually making sales, that affects the traceability of where your product is. How do you keep records for who has which products and which versions, and all of those scenarios? So yeah, there's a lot of aspects of the quality management system that disperse into the business processes, I guess. So that's the tricky thing, is picking a system that you can access all the correct records, so you've got everything up to date, but I guess not complicated enough, because the more people that need access to the QMS to use it, they need training on it. That's cost of having licenses for them to get in. We made not the mistake, but we went down the path of using an EQMS, and that had really good training records, and it was really brilliant because you could link to the documentation, you could keep records of who's been trained on which. But then as you broadened that into the whole business, we had to have people with a license to access the EQMS just to do their training, which wasn't actually QMS based. It was just the office training. And so it's really hard to find those balances. And I think the other challenge is also scaling it. It's easy to make a decision when there's 3 or 4 of you, and that's all that needs access, and you're just working with all of it. You all know it all. It's all fine. It's as it grows, it becomes more tricky, and that's when it's very difficult to pick a tool early on, and you may have to set it up so that you can migrate to other systems later as you grow potentially. There's a lot to think about with your systems. And it can also restrict your processes if you don't pick one that works and that's adaptable. You can get sort of locked into how they think this process should flow, which may not be how you do it for a start, and potentially, more importantly, not how you want to migrate to as you grow and scale. So there's challenges with that as well. I think, it's just a tricky one, and all you can do, I don't know if there's a right answer. I think we all know there's various systems, and there's potentially a right answer at the right time for you, and then just planning as you scale how that's going to flow. Sorry, no great answers there, but lots of challenges.
Yeah, but I think it was a good overview, Lisa, and you picked on the pain points you have, and as Lisa said, it's really considering, and this depends absolutely on the product as well. The scalability of your QMS, that is one, and I mean, if you have let's say an easy product, but even with an easy product, if you want to go as a company, I want to go, I don't know, to 100 people, then you have to pick one, or you have to pick one which you say, okay, we're not starting with an AQMS, we are using SharePoint, And then at some point you decide to migrate, and then you pick the right tool. So it's all up to you. And another point actually is when you set up a QMS, and that's always a discussion point when I have based on my experience in projects. It's the rule you have. So you really have to make sure there are only 3 people in the company when you start. Maybe you need someone who's responsible for the quality management system. It's a QM representative. This person actually starts and initiates the process. This one should be clear right from the beginning. And then you have to make clear that everyone will wear different hats. So it's quite yeah. Yeah, it's I wouldn't say it's a challenge. It's more like a team set up while you set up your quality management system. I don't know, Lisa, did you had any challenges over the year in this, or is it more like it's a flow while you set up your QMS and everyone says, yeah, it's fine, I go with it?
Not so much challenges. I think what's a really good thinking point, I think, when you are setting up those processes, identifying who is going to own it
Yeah.
and who is going to make that final decision. And even you were mentioning documentation and SOP, so they should be a standard format. I think that's a really good starting point, because working through the format, things like responsibility and authority, documenting that on your SOP up front can be really difficult when there's 3 of you, because you kind of all do bits of this. And it's useful, I think, to understand who is going to lead on which parts of it. So that is captured in the SOP, and then it becomes transferable once you actually bring other people in. Then you can understand. It's kind of just makes you think about actually, well, who's going to do that part? It's fine to map out the process, but it becomes a bit blurry if different people do different parts. So I guess trying to make it's difficult, but it makes you define. Let's think about the plan of who's going to do which parts in each of those processes. And again, that's a scalability factor. I think that's where it becomes tricky as you get more and more people joining in different teams, that you can understand it. But makes you rethink, who do we want to be doing which parts, because that flows onto so many other aspects of training, etc. as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Just for everyone to understand, there is no requirement in 13.5 or any other standards which says when you set up documentation that you need let's say, an author and reviewer and an approver. It's not said if I'm a one-man show, I have to do everything. What I recommend always is just like have the process owner writing it, and have, it depends on which market you go, your QM person or your person for regulatory compliance to review and approve it. So I have seen a company that's approved by a CEO, but it doesn't make any sense. Why? What is a specific regulatory rule from a CEO? If he is, let's say we're talking about a 50-person company and the CEO is so far away from daily operations that it doesn't make any sense. So it has to make sense. But as I say, it's not required. If you're a one-man show, you're a one-man show. You're the writer, the reviewer, and the approver. So what does it mean to set up your QMS? Is you need the regulatory strategy. Please have this in place. You definitely need management commitment. When I say management commitment, if you are a three-person combo, shouldn't be a problem. If you are, let's say, a bigger company which already has products on the market, and you decide now to go into medical devices, please ensure management is with you, and don't forget the budget. Please budget. Budget for tools, budget for time commitments. People are engaging, and when they engage, they can't develop your product. They can't stay in production. They can't. So you have to budget it. Point on it. That is the setup. The next one is implementation of your quality management system. So there's a time, okay, after 2 months, that's what I want. That might be the tool I have chosen. I have the right people in place. Let's go. My architecture, it's clear. Put your quality management system into action. Estimation between 5 to 12 months. But as I say, it's only an estimation. I have seen a quality management setup for a software company within 4 months. I have seen this. So all of it. But your startup, and take your time. Don't rush into it, because implementing a quality management system really means we're talking about the idea I had about my SOP, my procedures. I have to ensure that what I have in mind with my procedure, that's actually what the people do, and that's what Lisa said before. We need a process owner. We need someone who not only owns the process, who knows about the process. This person really has to make sure that what we have in written form, that is actually what people are doing. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. The quality management responsible writes an SOP, and I don't know, developers or people in production look at it and say, no, sorry, but that's not what we do. So make sure that you write down, or the person responsible writes down, what really is daily practice. That is so important. So if that's done, start to train the people. And I'm not saying, when I say train the people, it's not like throwing a written document after them. Make it a team effort. Grab the team together and say, hey, listen, that's what we do. That's documented. That is what we put into this process, and that are the deliverables. And that is important. When I say that are the deliverables, that is exactly what we were talking during set up the QMS, adjust the traceability to ensure that really we have the input we put into a process. Let's say we're talking about a production process. We write down that raw material goes in. We have then the production line. We use different machinery, and then we have, I don't know, we have parts coming out of it, or we have the product coming out of it. If parts coming out of it, we might have, in addition, assembly process, which has, again, a different description. So, and that is the traceability. Raw material going in, part production, coming out, parts, and then assembly process. That all has to feed into each other. So we have the same software development. Requirements going in, then we start with a software architecture and with requirement specification. Then someone will start coding, and at the end, we hopefully have a product in hand. But as I said, training the staff is important. Another thing, and I mentioned this earlier, documentation. Document everything. Please document everything. It is so important. When you're talking about your, or when you set up, for example, your development process, product development, software development, I wouldn't make a difference in thinking of it. Allow yourself kind of a feasibility. The discussion you will have with the team always is like, yeah, but sometimes we are not clear what we want. And say, okay, that's fine. When we are talking about this specific process, let's have a feasibility. Whatever you do, scribble notes, photographs, it doesn't matter. That is a documentation. Put this into the document. It doesn't have to be a template, but we need everything documented. And when we then go in and follow our procedure, then we really have to keep the records. We need to record everything, and this will follow templates we provide within our QMS. So, which gives an idea. I implement a standard operating procedure, and with the standard operating procedure, I also implement templates. When we are talking about product development, I might have templates related to the system architecture or the software architecture or requirement specification. I provide as much templates as I can to ensure that all information are recorded, documented, everything is documented, and that I always know, oh, okay, that are the documents to, I don't know, version 1 of our product. That are the documents, version 2 of our product, documented by Lisa Hudson. So that is really important to have all the information in place and all the information documented. So you have your skeleton of your QMS, what you have drawn during the setup, and now you fill everything with life. You have lots of procedures in place. We are talking about, as I say, development. We're talking about manufacturing, QA. We are talking about that is on regulatory side. We are talking about placing a device on a market, records, which we hopefully not use, but we need it. We're talking about document control, internal audits, management review. We have all these procedures in place. Everyone is working hard on it. And then we start to conduct our first internal audits. What this means is that the quality management responsible person will start to really review is, does the development team actually follow this one, their own standard operating procedure? And don't be afraid if an internal audit discovers, oh, they're not doing what they should. That's absolutely fine. Therefore, we conduct internal audits. Another thing is we have to conduct a management review. Remember, I was talking about management involvement. And a management review is indeed a management review. I expect the management to sit down and review the quality management system based on data which are delivered to each procedures, feedback, whatsoever. That is really has to be done by management. It can't be done by anyone else. And I would like to see that the quality management responsible person has done it on her or his own. Again, if you're a one-man show, we are one-man show. I sit on the table with myself and discuss. So how that looks like, that is an overview again, what it could be tailored to weeks, what processes do we start with? Well, yeah, it starts, here's actually where we start really to engage the team. We need the team to help us to put everything in place if we are the person responsible. So, Lisa, what is, based on your experience, what is, what is the team effort? What is it, a really effective team? How does it help? Does it help anyway?
Yeah, I guess it's about building that team from my perspective. My mentality, rightly or wrongly, is to make sure that everyone understands what they're doing, and not just what they're doing, not just this is what you do, but the why, so that they get the whole concept of the importance of what they're doing, understand what the consequences are if they don't do that, just so they get a whole ownership of the process, really. And as you mentioned before, Anne, in terms of getting people involved who are even providing information into the project or to the process, and also then have to pick up the outputs of that process, so that the whole group, I guess, understand what is happening at various points, and then they can help streamline that process. Invariably, you might do something in the way you're processing it that you don't realize creates an issue for further down the path. So if you talk to each other, then you all understand what each other needs, and then you can actually line the process up so that it works and it's more streamlined. So that's probably one of the key things, I think, as you were talking about running SOPs and designing the process. You can't, I can write a beautiful SOP. However, Does it actually work? That's going to be the question. And only the people that do it can actually work that out. So it's really crucial to have them involved in what that is, as you mentioned, Anne. In terms of building the team, again, so I think for me, the key things is training is critical. I guess I'm a very firm believer, a lot of ownership in terms of we can't set people up to fail, because if things go wrong in that process, it's most likely because we haven't communicated properly what needed to happen, or we haven't put it significantly so that they understand if they don't do that, this is what happens down the path, or why that's a critical factor that they're actually working on. So that's really important. And so I guess it's just making sure they understand what they're doing and have ownership and feel as if they are part of that process, so that they will speak up if it doesn't work. And as you said, Anne, internal audits are great. We haven't done enough. We're not at that point quite yet. But every time you do one, you find something that's not quite lined up. And it's not about waving your stick and smacking hands. It's about, oh, okay, we didn't realize that's what you were doing. So, okay, so this isn't going to work because you can't have that if we do it that way. So it's really, to some extent, it's putting a different hat on. And you also mentioned, Anne, about having, if you're a one person company, that's all fine. That is what it is. But again, it's about trying to switch hats and think of it from a different perspective. I think that's what I quite like about the internal audit process is you stand back. You may have even worked on and written those processes, but you can still stand back and think about it independently. So if I'm just reading what it says, what does it say? Can I see that's happened? Not the fact that you know where it is, that's irrelevant. So that's, I guess, the challenge in a smaller business and particularly startup, where there's not that much resource for it. Independence is ideal, but if you can't get it, it's really a case of trying to step back, reset, and think, okay, let's look at it as if I was somebody else who hasn't done this. What is actually happening, and is it lined up? Because invariably it'll be found in an external audit. So your internal audit process is the way of finding it before you get to that point, and then you can make sure that it is actually what you think it's going to be. I guess that's mostly. I mean, the team is critical for me. That's the yeah. I mean, I can write all the procedures and have a lovely setup system. The implementation is where it comes to fruition, whether we did it right or wrong.
Yeah, exactly. I'm absolutely with you, Lisa. And the key point is to have the process owner, and even there's someone responsible for the whole process, but it is so important to have the team involved. That is another. And to think about, even we like to conduct internal audits, the process owner itself needs some ways to understand if the process he put actually in place is effective. And that's when you set up a SOP, you should think of if you can put some KPIs in place to measure it for yourself. But also this, if you start to implement, just really, I always say, I would love to start really lean, low level, and then build up over time, because that's actually learning curve. And when you see the next one, that is, we were talking before that you have to engage your team, and let's say I'm employed as a software engineer and I know exactly what I have to do. I'm just, I don't know, I'm Java and developer and doing whatsoever. And then regulatory hits me, and then it says, okay, in regulatory, I'm the software developer, and then I'm a requirements engineer, and I'm a software tester. This is not that is not a addition to your employment contract you already have in place. It is just the regulatory rule which is required within the process. So we need someone who's testing the software. So, and if you're a software tester, and we are talking about a company with more than one person, then actually, if you're the tester, it's actually not great if you're the developer as well. You can do this if you say, okay, but that's this person tests the software which he or she hasn't developed, because that's another part. That's fine, but it's kind of not ideal if we say someone is is an architect, software architect, software developer, software tester. We try to really separate this kind of rules. If it's not possible, it's fine. Then I would recommend to have some other tools in place which ensures that there's no contradiction between the different rules. But this also, that is another discussion we can have. Always the question is, how do I set it up? How do I start actually to set up a good SOP? And I always say start with gathering information. Just like so, when we are talking about product development, what are we dealing with? In this case, I have an example that I say, okay, we are dealing with raw material. We need design resources, we need manufacturing resources, we need a manufacturing site, and obviously we need some humans. So, and then I can map this one with requirements in our standard. Let's talk about the raw material. I say, oh, okay, well, I have raw material, so obviously I need suppliers. Should qualify this one. If I have raw material, there would be an incoming good inspection. I would expect this. And when we qualify supplier, there should maybe be an evaluation and a survey. And so that's how you start to develop if you haven't done it before. That's what I would expect people to have for actually for their main part of the business. So to see that they understand what they need. And other thing I said, it's that is really important. Don't start too high when you just start with it, but key performance indicator, which means really you can measure the effectiveness of your processes. I put some in. They are all related they're all related to 13485 because obviously they have to make sense. For example, if we have, let's grab this one, number of design changes after design transfer. So my design is done, product is done, design transfer means always it's all done. I have something which I put into production and then I start to change. And that is, I know they don't want to hear it if we have software developer here in our small team today. But that's, for example, that is actually a good KPI for software developer about design changes. So if they come up with a lot of design changes, then there's something wrong with the input process. I have software requirements, I have software requirement specification, and I can have a lot, and they can all be in a backlog. But as soon as I come up with news, I should ask the team what's going on. So that, as I say, they are only examples, but I think that is each process owner should be able to find their KPIs because they play a really important part. Another thing we have when we implement a quality management system, and that's always a discussion point, always, it's versioning. Again, it depends on your product. I really recommend to have at least a work instruction for it. You need a good description how you version your product. If you have only hardware only, if you have software only, it's kind of easy. If you have a mix of hard and software, or even if you have, let's say, two hardwares, you deliver two hardwares as two pieces of hardware, independent products as a system, you have exactly the same. Please be clear and make clear what is your version control. So that gives you an idea or what comes out of audits, so I'm also auditing. So that are the pain points by setting up a quality management system. And this is, again, versioning that is, again, team effort. Get the team on the table and start to discuss. That will take a long time to become the right version, but as you can see, that has an impact on lots of stuff, and that goes to the product is on the market, and then you go with post-market surveillance. Because when there is an issue, a recall, which we don't hope, but which can happen, of course, you need really to understand which products are impacted, right? So good thing to work on. And then there's always a question, how can I implement this efficiently? So because as we have seen, there's so many SOPs. It's only one quality management responsible person. How can we do this this all? The one thing is when we set clear objectives, it just don't overdo it. When you can see it's not done in 12 months, say, okay, we are done in 18 months. It's fine. It's fine. Don't rush it. It doesn't make any sense to rush the team and without their commitment. It doesn't make any sense. And then I, as a CEO, can say, but I want to have it in 12 months' time. Yes, I would love it that well, but it's not possible because the team is developing in the meantime as well. We don't have enough people on board. We might not have the budget. That's why everyone has different tasks. So be really, really clear and set clear objectives. Another one is, and we have spoken before, with the tools you're using or you decide for, with the templates you set up, be really careful as well here, be clear, and keep in mind when you can provide templates to the team, it makes it easier. And it streamlines the work because it's all in one form and the team can use it repeatedly. And another thing is when you implement a quality management system, for procedures first. As I say, start with development or start with, it really depends on the company. Start with development always and then go into maybe into production. It depends on or when you're a software company, it's obviously development and production is one, but then start with the software development process and then think about versioning and put the rest around. So the quality management person or the regulatory person, if you are lucky and have a different one, they can work on their own, placing on the market and document control and internal audits. But this person, the quality management person, should focus to support the team first to come up with the core procedures. The other one is bring the team in early. That is the point that they can actively participate, maybe contribute to the SOPs you want to put in place. If you are a starter, just find a consultant or find someone who can help you. You don't need to work with consultant if you know someone from a company, they already implemented something. Ask them, network, ask people you know, and you already have done all the stuff. But it can save you time and it can help you not to make the same mistakes as they have made. And the other one is, as Lisa mentioned, when you discover that the procedure is not what the team does, just change it. Don't hold on too long and try to press the team in. It doesn't make any sense. The team won't follow because they have to follow the framework, the quality and regulatory framework. So, and again, as an example for software development, you always have a discussion with the team and say, we are going agile. That's absolutely fine. You can go agile. That's nothing against it. But you have to put your agile part into the software development. You have to put it in. So I can't go agile and change widely the software architecture and so on. It doesn't make any sense. But I have some parts where I can go agile. So what does it mean implementing a quality management system? Again, management commitment, clear processes and documentation. If you figure out you miss a process or you miss a document, go on and reload. And another one is obviously train your staff and see that everyone gets engaged. You need your team to make it an effort. The last thing we do is maintaining our quality management system. That is what we want, improvement, and Lisa was talking. When you do internal audit is part of maintenance. And when you figure out this improvement, great. When you find non-conformities during your audit, perfect. It's not, or it shouldn't be used to slap someone's finger because they say, oh, you didn't do. No, it's just like be grateful and say, great, we have discovered that this is not followed because sometimes it doesn't make any sense or there are better ways to do so. Let's improve. And this improvement is actually ongoing after implementation. So what you do is you monitor your processes and make sure that everyone works within the processes, and your business will change over time. You have to adapt. Your business will change, regulations will change. You have to adapt it. So internal audits, management review, they might identify areas for improvement, issues with the product. They might identify issues with the processes. Can be that we have issues with the product because we haven't had the right process in place. And another thing is staff training it's an ongoing thing. It's not done. Well, we have implemented our quality management system. It's all everyone is trained. No, that's not what it is. It's should be a regular training. So, and that's actually what is mean in terms of maintenance. We're talking about, that's what I said before, management review, internal audits. We have to update maybe our quality policy. There may be updates related to regulation and legislation. That is, point on it. Lisa, do you have one good tip for maintenance for the team?
I think the main input into how well you can maintain it is how well you've documented everything. So what we find most with changes is you going back to actually why did we do it that way in the first place? And if we have no records of any of that, that's becoming an open risk for changing things that you've already tried, or we eliminated those scenarios when we first decided on it, but we didn't keep a record of that. And I guess the classic thing I keep hearing from various people in the business is like, well, oh yeah, we talked about that, but I can't remember what we decided in the end, or oh yeah, we did investigate that, but no, I can't remember which version of product that was, or just all of those scenarios. And that's when the maintenance, the dealing with the issues and all of those things become much more challenging. So write it down, even if it's not a beautiful format, like you say, Anne. If it's a photo of a screenshot of something you've scribbled on a piece of paper or a whiteboard, or bullet points of this was my thinking at the time, this is why we did that. That's all it needs to be, and you can pull that in when you need to. That's probably the most important thing, is you're totally dependent on what you have captured.
Thank you. That's exactly what it is. So key requirements again, budget. Please don't forget the budget. Staff need to be trained and engaged, management commitment all the time, and make sure you have the right quality management architecture with clear processes and with the documentation. That is so important. What is the summary for today? Management commitment right from the start, please. It's easy if you're three. It's might be a bit harder if you're an already grown company. Structure your QMS that it fits your company, your size, your product, the team. Make it capable of growing. Don't forget that this could happen. And work with the team engagement. That's what we want.